Hi, welcome back. In this video, I will discuss what are entity sets in DBMS, what are the different types of entity sets, and what are the difference between entity sets. First, we will try to understand what is an entity set in DBMS. An entity refers to any object having physical existence or conceptual existence. For example, person, office, house or car have the physical existence, hence they are called as entity sets. Similarly, school, university, company or job have conceptual existence, hence they are called as entity sets in this case. For example, we will consider a student table. In this case, we have 3 columns and 4 rows. This entire table is called as entity set. In general, it is called as student entity set. Roll number, name and age are called as the attributes of this entity set, and each row is called as entity in this case. So 1, 2, 3, 4 entities are there. Roll number, name and age are the attributes, and this entire table is called as entity set in this case. In ER diagram, attributes are associated with an entity set, and these attributes describe the properties of entities in the entity set. Based on the values of these attributes, an entity or a row can be uniquely identified. For example, each and every table or entity set have something called as a primary key. The values of those primary keys are used to uniquely identify an entity or a row in the given database. There are 2 types of entity sets in DBMS. The first one is strong entity set and the second one is weak entity set. We will try to understand each of these types one by one. A strong entity set is an entity set that contains sufficient attributes to uniquely identify all its entities. That means there exists at least one entity, or you can say that attribute, which is used to uniquely identify all its entities or the rows. That attribute is called as the primary key, or in other words we can say that there exists a primary key in strong entity set. Primary key of a strong entity set is represented by underlining it. Now we will try to understand what are the different symbols used in strong entity set. A single rectangle is used to represent the strong entity set. A diamond symbol is used for representing the relationship that exists between 2 strong entity sets. A single line is used for representing the partial participation of the strong entity set with the relationship set, and double line is used for representing the total participation of the entity set with the relationship set in this case. A total participation may or may not exist in the relationship with respect to strong entity sets, but when it comes to weak entity sets, total participation should exist. Then only we will be able to uniquely identify each and every entities or the rows. This is an example for strong entity set. In this case, student and course are the 2 strong entity sets because the student ID in the first case is the primary key, and course ID with respect to course entity set is the primary key here. Using student ID, we can uniquely identify the different students. Using course ID, we can uniquely identify the different courses here. These strong entities are related with respect to enrolled in. There exists a partial participation between course and enrolled in, and there exists a total participation between student and enrolled in. These double line indicate the total participation, and single line indicate partial participation. The underline below this particular attribute name indicates the primary key. Hence, student ID and course ID are the primary keys in this case. Now we will consider the second entity set, that is a weak entity set. A weak entity set is an entity set that does not contain sufficient attributes to uniquely identify its entities. In other words, we can say that weak entity sets does not contain the primary key, so that we can uniquely identify the different entities or the rows. However, it contains something called as the partial key. It is also called as discriminator. The discriminator can be combined with the primary key of other entity set to uniquely identify the rows or the entities. The discriminator is represented by underlining a dashed line in this case. These are the symbols used with respect to weak entity set. A double rectangle is used to represent a weak entity set. Double diamond symbol is used for representing the relationship that exists between strong and weak entity set. This relationship is known as identifying relationship. A double line is used for representing the connection of the weak entity set with the relationship set. The total participation always exists in identifying the relationship. This is a simple example to understand the weak entity set. In this case, we have two entity sets. The first one is building and the second one is apartment. Building is a strong entity set. Apartment is the weak entity set. The relationship is BA, which is we can say that a weak relationship because it is represented with double diamond in this case. The building has three attributes, namely building number, building name and address. Apartment has two attributes, door number and floor here. The building number is the primary key of building. That is the reason it is called as the strong entity set. The door number is a discriminator element. That is, this apartment does not have any primary key here. We can say that's a primary partial key, or it is called as discriminator key here. That is the reason apartment is a weak entity set in this case. Now, how to identify the entities or the rows in this particular apartment uniquely? Using door number, it is not possible because it is not a primary key. So what we do here is we will combine the primary key of the other strong entity so that we can uniquely identify the rows of this particular apartment entity set in this case. Finally, these are the differences between the strong entity set and the weak entity set. A single rectangle is used to represent the strong entity set. A double rectangle is used for representing the weak entity set. It contains sufficient attributes to form its primary key. It does not contain sufficient attributes to form its primary key. When it comes to strong entity set, a diamond symbol is used for representation of the relationship that exists between two strong entity sets. A double diamond symbol is used for representing the relationship that exists between strong and weak entity set with respect to weak entity sets. In a strong entity set, a single line is used for representing the connection between strong entity set and the relationship. In a weak entity set, a double line is used for representing the connection between weak entity set and the relationship set. Finally, the total participation may or may not exist in strong entity set, but total participation always exists with respect to weak entity set. So these are the different differences between strong entity set and weak entity set here. In this video, I have explained what are entity sets and what are the different types of entity sets. Finally, I have discussed what are the difference between strong entity set and weak entity set. I hope the concept is clear. If you like the video, do like and share with your friends. Press the subscribe button for more videos. Press the bell icon for regular updates. Thank you for watching.